I could have used another 20 minutes of those photo developing erotic scenes. Those were really good.
So we're covering one of the most talked about movies at the BFI Flare Film Festival in London. Well, it's kind of worldwide because it's all online because of the pandemic. I'm Phil Marriott and I'm with Sean, Vickers and Raj Rudolph. Today we're talking about Firebird.
So this is based on a true story, which is always, gets people's brain tingling. I always think based on a true story. So it's based around the memoirs of a Soviet actor called Sergei. And a very interesting story of like a love triangle set in the Soviet era involving a pilot and a young lady called Oleg.
So this is directed by Peeter Rebane. He's an Estonian film director. I didn't actually know until today that he produced a Eurovision Song Contest back in 2002.
No, I don't think the name doesn't ring a bell.
It's true. How amazing is that?
That's a fun fact I really didn't need to know.
Kind of spoils the mood, right?
No bad words against the Eurovision Raj.
Really? Could they find any more two attractive leads? I mean, really? They
just so chiseled.
Really?
Those faces, you're really good looking guys. So I think, that alone on it, on its own is a good start. Then you got everything on top of that.
Oh, we're deep on boys on film today, aren't we?
Yeah.
Raj, I'm about to say that we haven't even talked about the cinematography, the script, but we're like, everyone's really hot. 5
Don't
stars.
need to. Why bother?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was very stunning actors. I love the whole love triangle aspect of it. It kind of felt like on an LGBTQ plus film spectrum, like our version of Top Gun. Like the whole scenes within the airplanes and the fighter pilots and everything, I was getting Top Gun vibes for some reason. I'm like, that just feels all sorts of wrong, but I was all sorts of into it. I was really rooting for Sergei to win in the end, in the love triangle aspect of it. And I really hated the homophobic colonel officer. And it was just, it was just a really engaging film. I loved it. I could watch it again.
Can we talk about that first scene when they properly get together? I mean, it wasn't the first kiss, but it was the photograph developing scene. I found that really erotic. I mean, nothing really happened, but it was just really tender. And I found it quite stirring. Was it just me?
There was a similar scene where they were kind of like getting it on in a moonlit sea. That again, we didn't really get a lot, but then you got a lot, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
There was some quite tender moments, certainly.
I think that really reflected the mood overall as well, because the score, when you think about the piano, very soft piano score with strings as well. I think actually one of the leads, is it Tom Pryor, who played Sergei? I think he was responsible for the supervision of the music that was used, or some of the music that was used in this film. So that was quite interesting. Also, he co-wrote it as well. And also one of the producers.
Interesting. Yeah, I think this is the very beginnings of a rising star situation. I had a look at their IMDb pages beforehand, and it looks like they're just kind of starting out on the early phases of their career. So I think they're going to get booked for a lot more work after this film gets seen.
I thought he's on a trajectory. You've seen this before with other actors of his kind of style and ilk, where they just suddenly fly off the runway. You could see he's got all the building blocks there. So I agree completely.
And there's some really interesting flashback, they're kind of dream sequences where it's almost like Sergei suffocating underwater. And I thought that really blended well with the rest of the film as well, because it had that kind of mood about it where there was tension, there was danger.
What I really appreciated was they took the extra time to tell a complete story, because there was a couple moments in the film where they just could have ended it, but they kept going with it a little further, turned another page, gave you that little bit more. So I really appreciated that, because a lot of gay films of this nature would have, the first sign of like wrapping up the story, let's get it done, put a bow on it. But no, they gave us that little bit of extra that I liked. So it felt like a cinematic moment rather than an independent gay film.
I do have some observations. one of them is around the accent,
Yeah.
which was a distraction.
When you think about the TV series Chernobyl, a lot of people had problems with the Russian speaking the English language, because of course it's not compulsory over there, so it wouldn't be the language that they would use. So that could throw you out of it feeling genuine. It didn't bother me, and Chernobyl, it didn't bother me either.
It did feel like there were a couple times where like you just heard the hints of a British accent coming through, which I did pick up on, but did it throw me out of the film completely? No.
It's because Oleg and Roman are native to that part of the world, and and Tom Pryor is not, and so you get a slight jar at times, especially very early on in the film, where I was like, "Ooh, that's a little crunchy." But that was one thing. It plodded a little bit at times, which is not necessarily a criticism, but it could have been pacier. But I'd say it's not a criticism. It just felt like it plodded a little bit. And my third observation was the threat, the true threat, which is either the macro threat of the Cold War or the micro threat of that colonel. I don't know whether I really felt that urgency, that acuteness of that threat, but it didn't take away from the film. But there were moments where I think some of those elements could have been heightened or changed or amended slightly just for the overall feel. But they're just my observations.
That colonel was so obsessed with their relationship, though. He's kind of sniffing them out. It was so grubby, wasn't it? It was horrible.
I think they did a really good job combining the threat of, the social politics of the time and sort of the homophobic, I'm going to get you colonel, which kind of made one big threat overall. I see what you're saying, definitely. But yeah, that really... I felt it. It felt a little threatening. I always kind of put myself in those shoes of like, how would I react? And I think the way that Sergei reacted to the whole thing was very brave. Willing to put it all on the line versus Roman, who was trying so hard to fit into a mold.
And when you think about homosexuality as well, decriminalised, as late as 1993 as well.
Definitely.
Decriminalised and then recriminalised, Phil. That's an incredibly wild thing about it.
Yeah.
It was, but no, I thought it was a really tender story. You're right. It was full. They allowed the story to pan out. They allowed characters to pan out. The scenes towards the end between Oleg and Sergei are really touching. The fact that they were best friends in the past and this connection, I thought that was really interesting. A character play between Oleg and Sergei. So yeah, I like the film.
The part that made me cry was the plane, the toy plane. Without saying anything else, you know what I'm talking about. It was that kind of symbolism also, almost that just broke me. It just broke me because there's so much complexity with the child, obviously, the friendships, the relationships. It's all pretty intertwined, isn't it? It's pretty intense.
This film got me thinking a little bit too. What was the wife's name? Was it Louisa or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, obviously she fell into that character mold of, I'm the straight woman who got duped and fell for a guy who's actually gay. And it got me thinking, we don't see a lot of movies where we explore actually the, woman's point of view in that whole thing. Yeah, she had some real good scenes at the end when, Sergei comes to face her and, she has some really powerful dialogue at the end too, like not in front of my child, if you remember. But it got me thinking, not that it has anything to do with the movie not exploring that, but I would like to see that plot point in some other films, because it feels like the woman gets, she gets duped no matter what, like in any situation, she is not the one who makes, has a happy life, and I think as gay film goes, we tend to focus a little too much on the gay relationship, but I think there's something to be explored. I would like to see a brave filmmaker explore that dynamic of, hey, what does it feel like for the woman in the situation? Because looking at it feels pretty shit. So
yeah, I mean, it was heartbreaking, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting you touch on that point, Raj, because you get a little bit of that, a little bit, not to the extent that you're saying, and I think you're completely right, in Brokeback Mountain with Anne Hathaway and Michelle Williams, where you feel the other, you know, of those situations. But you're right, there isn't one where the anchor point is the wife and the experience of that.
But I think that's what broke my heart, because you do feel that Sergei was sad for her as well. Obviously he couldn't really stop that because he had such overwhelming feelings, and so many people go through this as well, this you know, relationship experience, and with the pressures that they had on top of that, it was pretty nightmarish in a lot of ways. I really enjoyed this movie, and I was moved by it too. 4 stars for me.
What show I'm going to give it?
I reckon 3.
Because of the, from my perception, the lack of menace, and at times it felt like it plodded a little. I did really like the film. I'm going to give it a 3.
You give your authentic score, Sean.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you. I love the deathly silence when you two go, I love it, 10 stars.
It's like, right, we're off.
It's funny. We'll edit out the deafening silence.
It's funny because it is one of the big films of the festival, isn't it? It's the real draw, because it's in the Heartstrand too, and it's one of those films that a lot of people are going to be talking about it. I mean, they are already, even before the screening. But yeah, I thought it delivered.
I'd watch it again.
I thought it delivered. I got a start, a middle, and an end, and I was like, I thought it delivered, but there were some bits for me, you know.
But the question is, Sean, would you cut 20 minutes out of it?
Well, obviously. I mean, that's a given. That is a given in most films. I'm like, I know where I could tweak 20 minutes out of this film. So yeah, I don't need to say it anymore, Rod. You can just assume that I'm just going to say you could take 20 minutes out of that film.
Well, I could have used another 20 minutes of those photo developing erotic scenes. Those were really good. Yeah.
And also the uniforms. Let's not even go there.
Yeah. Phil.
Racy. Very racy.
Honestly. So there we go. Another BFI Flare film review in the can. We've got plenty more where that came from. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks, guys. And thank you for watching. See you soon.